All right, everybody, we are here in Cabo. We're having our One Big Fire Mastermind in beautiful Cabo at the Hyatt Ziva. We have the legendary Paul Frank, commercial real estate guy, 40 years in the industry.
40 years in the industry.
So he might know a thing or two. And we'll get to talk a little about eXp Commercial. And why not eXp Commercial? I figured what better person than this guy right here, number one at the brokerage, although you'll never admit it, number one out of 90,000 agents, the number one commercial person at eXp. Tell us a little about yourself, Paul, and kind of your move out here.
Yeah, well, I am the poster child for not being here. 40 years in the business as a commercial real estate developer, broker, general contractor, property manager, all things. In fact, one of our trademark slogans is dirt to disposition. So we've got a pretty broad experience in all things real estate. And I am what I consider to be the poster child for not trying this experiment.
Sure. And so you had your own brokerage, successful. What kind of talk about that process as to why you would even think about eXp, right? You got your own company. Why make a move when you can keep everything you have? You have autonomy. You don't answer anybody. Why? Tell us how eXp kind of came about.
Yeah. Well, 35 years owning my own brokerage. And when they first of all, over my career, I've been recruited by all the globals, offered buyouts and offered franchises, and I was just never interested in any of that. All of my companies have my initials on them. One W-2 job ever in my life for Domino's Pizza for about 7 days. So again, in high school. And again, I'm just, I was never interested in being a part of something bigger. I'm more of a head coach than an assistant coach, as I put it. And about 9 years ago, they came to me with this new model that they equated to being the blockbuster video Netflix moment in real estate, which I have to admit caught my attention a little bit because I dealt with Blockbuster on their way up as well as their way down.
So you saw that kind of transpire.
Yes, yeah, in brick and mortar and in the video tape and CD world.
Right.
So caught my attention, but not quite enough.
Okay. What were some, let's say pain points as an independent owner? Like, what did you run into throughout your career that you're searching for solutions to?
Well, I had a team, I had a number of agents, but I was never interested in growing a brokerage because it was somewhat like a daycare. It just looked like more problems. And again, I've been a commercial developer as well as the brokerage side. So my attention was split a little bit, but the liability, the E&O insurance and the audits yearly, I had 3 random audits by the Department of Real Estate. Not that we did anything wrong.
Which are never fun.
No, no. A week of them in my conference room going through files does not bode for a good night's sleep.
And then how did the conversation continue? You kept turning people down, saying you're not interested. You did have these pain points, but you also had a lot of what we call pleasure points. There's some pros. I always tell people, if you're making a move, it better not be lateral. You're either going to make a move because there's a pain point that we can solve, or we can up the pleasure, right? But if it's lateral, stay where you are. It makes no sense for anybody. So pain point was there. What was the pleasure point? What was going well for you? And then kind of tie that into how ultimately you made the move.
Well, I don't even know that I recognize them as pain points because they were just given in the business. That's what you dealt with. And my 2 choices were go work for somebody else, right, or continue what I was doing. So I just viewed them as reality as opposed to pain points.
Okay.
And then, over a 5-year period, they just persistently came after me, and not after me, but checking in on me. And I would, on a quarterly or monthly basis, respond with some version of, with all due respect, I am literally the last human being on the planet that's going to buy into this. Go find somebody else.
But you hear, what was that watershed moment, that catalyst to say, maybe I've been wrong about this. We should take a look at it.
Yeah, I had a transaction occur that made this light bulb go off that maybe I was wrong about that. maybe I had prejudged, the platform and the everything that eXp was too quickly.
Yeah.
And it was a transaction where the other side of the brokerage, their check ended up in on my desk, opened, and I saw what it was, and it was literally considerably less than half of what mine was.
Right.
Which generated a phone call to this agent that had been in the business as long as I had, if not longer. And I said, hey, good news, bad news. I got your check. It was open on my desk, but where the heck did all your money go? Which he laughed and said, yeah, we're on a 50-50 split with, a bunch of other stuff.
That's incredible in a very bad way.
Yeah.
Not a good way.
No. But it was eye-opening that if that individual was on this eXp bus, that he would be so much better off than he was yesterday.
Sure.
And it didn't require more people to get on the bus. It was self-sustaining, whether the population on the bus went up or down, which negated the definition that I had given this entire platform and theory, and really made me take a much deeper look at it.
And you ultimately made the move. You joined in December of
December 1st, 2022. 4 years.
And how's it been? You're still here. It must be good.
Yeah, it's been best period of my career by far. I'm often asked what the downsides have been of leaving my own brokerage and the autonomy of having my own brokerage. And I can say without any question, it's zero. It has all been upside. In fact, just today, onboarded 2 more agents on my team in
Talk about global expansion that you don't have in other places.
Yeah, it's mind-blowing.
What about the value prop? Let's talk to maybe there's a commercial guy or gal out there in one of these big box brand names, or maybe they're an independent team lead and maybe they got the blinders on, they're totally closed off, or maybe they're somewhat curious. What would you say to them? What's the value prop that they should seriously consider? And again, this is not to make you make a move. It's simply information. We believe information, knowledge is power. What you do with it is even more powerful.
I become passionate about it. The one thing that frankly pisses me off about this is that I discovered it now after 40 years in the industry. I wish I was in my 20s or 30s and had the benefit of what this model can do for somebody. It's absolutely bewildering what somebody with intent could create here.
Yeah, we call that when we crunch numbers and look at it, I say it would be financial malpractice for me to not at least share this with you. And you guys outside on the commercial side, what, 50% usually to the broker, to the top. Tell us a little bit about how our structure is at eXp and a little bit about the financial side, numbers.
And back a step real quick, and what I would tell people is that vicarious learning is by far the least expensive and most powerful.
Yeah.
Because somebody else has paid the tuition. And that's what I try to share with people is my, 5-year mistake of telling them all to leave me alone. And I knew better. I owned my own brokerage. I was 100% of everything. Why would I give anybody anything? And I was 100% wrong. That 5 years, if I do the math on what that cost me, makes me ill.
Yeah. A lot of zeros and commas, I would imagine.
Absolutely. And sleepless nights and
audits,
all of that. Yeah, without question. But this platform, and I'll tell you quite candidly, one of my first aversions to it was they say it's an 80-20 split with a $20,000 cap, which for most people would probably catch their attention coming out of one of the globals, or any commercial brokerage or residential brokerage for that matter. My response is I'm 100% of anything or of everything. Why would I give anybody 20 grand?
Whether it's commercial or realty.
That was 100% wrong. I just did not understand.
And then how's that? What would you say to someone out there? How can we take the next steps? What would you recommend? What would you say is in their journey? Unless, of course, they want to fork over 50% on all their deals.
Yeah. And doubling down on that, I think this year is a great example. Aside from the revenue share side, which I thought was in nonsense until it actually kicked in. This year specifically is a great example of what is possible. Within 11 days of my year, I pay no more to the company after 11 days into my calendar year. And within 45 days of the calendar year, I iconed, which is a certain level of production or units, which means I get my cap back in stock. So essentially, other than the $23,000 a year that I save in E&O insurance, I'm here for nothing. So when I say it's all upside, it is literally all upside.
Company stock on the NASDAQ. It's not a penny stock, fully vetted by the authorities out. Valuation in the billions.
Yeah.
We have a lot of agents that have that ownership simply for selling real estate and selling a lot of real estate, and they get to become owners of a publicly traded broker.
Yeah.
You know, that's
I didn't actually even understand the stock part when I came into it. And I kept getting these emails from the platform that manages it. And I finally, after, 6-9 months, went in there and logged in for the first time. And I had a considerable amount of stock in there that I actually sold a piece of it just to prove to myself it was real.
Oh, yeah.
And I put it in the bank.
Oh, we've had people buy homes for their parents, take care of medical expenses, put their kids through college. Simply for doing real estate.
I know.
Get a big
hundreds of people that it's changed. That aspect alone has changed their life.
You touched up a little bit on revenue. Want to talk about?
That was an aspect to it, that the model and everything, which Brent and I have since done the commercial model explained. I didn't pay much attention to that. I sort of understood it, but my moment was, again, I'm a commercial developer, and one of my little projects I do a lot of work for Dutch Bros Coffee, Cinnabon, Annie Ann's, and I did a drive-through end cap with Dutch Bros, Cinnabon, Annie Ann's. Took me 4.5 years to get the project done. $1 million plus into the project, owed the bank $2.4 million.
All that stuff.
The risk, it was a nightmare, especially coming through COVID. It was not pleasurable, but it's finally built, performing, and it's providing income. Yay. About 2 years into this adventure, Martha in my office hits me up and she said, "Hey, I don't know what these deposits are from eXp. There's no escrow or transaction."
Right.
So I go into accounting and I said, "Hey, we're still trying to get acclimated to this, even it's 2 years in, but we don't know what these are." And they said, "That's your revenue share."
Right, what's this money? Where's it coming from?
Yeah, that's your revenue share. So unbeknownst to me, with virtually no effort or knowledge, people had joined and become part of my team, and then it kind of just grew from there. But the important part of that math for me that was just an absolute wake up was that my revenue share was half as much as what I was netting off of this 4.5 year risk filled development project. So half as much over here, where I have no overhead, I have no risk. The worst thing that happens is somebody says no or leaves.
Grows exponentially.
Yeah, and has continued. Like I said, 2 more agents today in India, which is just absolutely mind-blowing to me.
By the way, this is not a financial promise or claim, all that disclaimer stuff, Talk to a CPA, do the number, I go to a website.
My reality
can be different for everyone, right? Get that out of the way. That's incredible. That is incredible. And when in real estate, we're so used to a one-track income. It's you sell a house, you sell a commercial property, you're unemployed, you got to rinse, repeat. How much is that commission check from Dutch Bros worth from 4 years ago, 2 years ago? What is it worth now, right? But if you can build an organization, if you can earn company stock, you have a second, third, multiple lanes of I don't know about you guys. That's kind of life-changing for me.
And as a disclaimer, I've never sold a house in my life. And what's interesting is in my organization, probably over 50% are residential agents. So even the commercial narrative tends to attract and bring people closer.
What would you say, Paul, to the person out there? Again, either they got the blinders on or maybe they're somewhat curious. maybe they're tired of forking 50% over to their broker. What would you say? Should we call it an altar call? Should we call it a pitch? Should we say?
You know, it's interesting, and that's the response. I think we've talked about it before. I don't pitch it. I don't approach anybody about it, and because I'm passionate about the difference that it will make for residential or commercial in the next decade for their lives. I don't pitch. I just methodically tell them my story, and vicarious learning, as I said, is up to them. They can either benefit from the mistakes that I made and the epiphanies that I've had and the results that I've seen, or they can continue down the path. The door opens
inside, as we say.
Yeah.
I always tell people, no smart business person says no to an opportunity unless they know exactly what they're saying. Say yes to the meeting until you have a compelling reason to say no. What do you have to lose, right? So if you're watching this on my socials, on my platforms, reach out to me. This is Paul Frank. We can chat with you, answer any questions you have. If you're watching this, if somebody sent you this, go back to them and say, hey, tell me more. Tell me more. And continue those conversations. We're here to help answer any questions, but go back to that.
Look forward to talking to you. As I say, I'm easy to find and happy to help, and passionate about whether you make the move or you're just exploring for more information. Love to talk to you about it and tell you my story.
It's great. Coach, appreciate it. See you on the next